Taking Care of Business. I'm Prue from BIEDO and I'm joined by Vicki Leeson from Business Leap. Today we're going to be talking about selling your business, and before you go, this is all negative and it's a bad thing, it's not. You could be at any stage of your business journey, and this is all about selling your business for the best outcome that's right for you, and to also ensure that that business can remain in our community. So it's like passing on the baton to the next generation of business owner, and how you can set yourself up for that business continuity going forward. So just a huge shout out before we get started to the Business Leap team, to North Burnett Regional Council, who make these Taking Care of Business webinars and workshops possible. As you know, we've been running these as a face-to-face forum across the North Burnett and also in the South as well. And we've just found recently people are getting really zoomed out, really evented out, and people have got fatigue. So we're trying things a little bit differently. We're going online. So we're actually right now with you live. So you can be tapping away in the comments section, asking questions. We can come back to you in that comment section and in real time and answer your questions as we go through. So all of the information will be in the comments, the links, anything that you need, the contact details if you want to get in touch with Vicki and the Business Leap team or BIEDO. All the contact details will be in this workshop. So Vicki, to start off with, why don't you tell us a little bit about Business Leap, because this is a really fantastic service that we just really want to tell the whole, Burnett Inland, let's go global, Australia, that this is a free service. What you offer is a free service for small businesses, no matter where they are in their business journey.
Absolutely.
So you can come and meet with them one-on-one, totally no expense to the business owner, and in exchange for their time, they get one-on-one bespoke mentoring, support, advice, referrals from experienced business mentors like Vicki, who's been in the game for 20 plus years. Don't want to, give away too many trade secrets right there. But so tell us a little bit about the program and what you can do to help support small businesses.
Yes. Well, Business Leap is a program that's supported by the federal government, and there's 23 of me across Australia. I'm focused on the North Burnett, Wide Bay and Fraser Coast, but there's multiples of me. So whatever region you might be listening to this in, there's sure to be one of me in that region. And federal government supply us free of charge to all small business owners, whether that's starting or growing or just a little bit of support along the way, because a lot of business owners just feel very alone. They're in their business working day in, day out. Who do they make contact with? Well, that's what we're here for.
I think that is so true, especially for our region too. I mean, you could be in a metro city and be a business owner and feel alone.
Absolutely.
And then you come out to our region, which is geographically huge.
Yes.
And it's exacerbated, isn't it? So it's really wonderful to know that even though you might not be in your metro cities, you can still access absolute quality services that will help your business in a regional and remote area.
100%.
And even we're seeing it already, a lot of businesses going online.
Yes.
Working from home. It's possible, it's doable, and you're just there to kind of, help the process and set the foundations.
Let them know that there's support there. Let them know that whatever trouble or difficulty they might be having, somebody's already had it before.
Absolutely.
It's not something that they're alone with, and it's not something they're only encountering.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times the things that I encounter on a daily basis, I hear multiple times.
Yes.
And it's really just getting that across to people that this support has seen it in some way, shape or form before, and we can support you in whatever you're going through.
Yeah, and the great thing about people like Vicki in the north, Jason in the south and Lynn is that these are all business owners. They've been there, they've done the hard yards, they've made the mistakes, they've got back up again, they've dusted themselves off, and they're here to help you not trip up over the same issues, challenges, or whatnot. So it's not just talk fest. This is actual life and business experience. So it is such a valuable.
It is.
And the range of businesses that I know that you've helped and you've spoken with and mentored through in the North Burnett, anything from creative spaces through to food outlets to small businesces in that service delivery space. So it's open to just about anyone and everyone.
It is. Yeah, and the only real criteria is you've got to be a small business. Well, in the government's eyes, small business is somebody who turns over less than 1 million or has less than 20 employees. Well, in most cases, that's everyone that I speak to. Correct. Yeah. So don't be afraid to reach out, because we are there for you.
Yeah. And so we have covered off under the Taking Care of Business program, we have covered off on a whole heap of different topics, and we thought we'll cover off on preparing your business for sale, because as I said, it's not about doom and gloom. It is perfectly okay to go to be wherever you are on your business journey and go, this isn't for me anymore. I'm not enjoying it. My circumstances have changed and I want out. How can I do that in a way that helps me, benefits the buyer, and keeps that economic development and diversification in the North Burnett and the Burnett Inland as a whole? So this is not doom and gloom, and it's okay to fail. Like we've all been there. I mean, I think I started my first business when I was like 5. I got one of those, those frosty snowman cone things, and I set up a stall at the side of the road, middle of nowhere. Yeah. One car came past, that was my first business venture and I failed. It's fine, but no, in all seriousness, it is okay to try, and it is okay to walk away. So Absolutely. This is about how to do it in a
productive manner, and one that suits your special circumstances. It's about what is involved in selling a business, and why would that suit me, and in most cases, it's a surprising outcome to a lot of people.
I was going to say that, because not everybody goes into business going, okay, I've opened the doors, I've put the shingle out, I'm going to sell my business now. I don't think it's always part of that thought process when you venture into private enterprise.
No, because everybody thinks they're going to have that business forever. But at the end of the day, all sorts of manner of things can throw the spanner in the works, or it just becomes you're tired. It can be that you want to retire. Some people have been in businesses for a long, long time, and their children don't want to take it over, and so therefore it's time to, like you say, pass the baton on and have somebody fresh with fresh eyes, new life experiences, new ways of running that business. So it's there's a lot of benefits to it.
And we are seeing, as we've spoken about previously, is we are seeing this big push of people coming into the regions. They want out of the big cities. They realise they don't have to be stuck in the office cubicle. That's not how we work anymore. So there is real opportunity if, like Vicki said, if you're kind of at that stage where you're like, oh, I loved doing this business 5 years ago, but it's just not for me. Well, guess what? There's probably a young, fresh meat, if you like, just ready to embrace that tree change and that business opportunity. So this is a great time if you are looking for that exit to really put some small steps in place and set yourself up for success, if you like.
That's right. And so I'll go through a few of those things today, and again, we're live, so if you've got any questions, we've got a gamut of questions that we will go through and hopefully throw your way so that you can get a better understanding of what does go into selling a business. It's not just a matter of, going out and saying, I want my business sold now, which is what a lot of people do.
And I want this much money for it.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll go through a lot of those things which actually can determine what, how, when you sell your business, if indeed you decide to do so. So we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you thinking of selling your business? That can be today, tomorrow, next year. It doesn't have to be immediate, but this is just all food for thought.
Yeah.
It's a very important step, and you may need to ask yourself some questions first. Is this business ready for sale? You know, because there's a whole reasons why that may not be the case right at this very moment. What will I do after I sell? You know, if you've been in a business for a long, long time, or that's all you know, sometimes in your mind, you can actually think that's all I can do.
I think that's such an important talking point too in the mental health space.
Yes.
Because that business can be such a strong part of your identity and who you are and what you've been for so long, and that can be a real struggle.
Yeah,
So
it can.
So what should businesses or business owners be doing to prepare themselves for that? Do they need to reach out to mentors? Do they need to speak to chambers of commerce or
No, not necessarily, because those type of people are usually wanting people to stay in business. So it's really having the support of, your accountant. They will understand because they've been, through all of what you're going through inside your business books-wise. It can be family members. It can be that, at times you might have to reach out to professional help, especially if it is regarding that mental health issue, but not necessarily, what will I do after I sell? People forget that along that journey of owning that business, they have so many skills.
Yeah,
so many skills. Yes. So, please don't think you don't have skills, because you do,
and they're so transferable.
Absolutely.
And right now, as we keep saying, such a demand for those skills and so much demand for skill sharing. So if you've been in that business for 20 years, there's a young person who is just itching. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting.
So that's sort of, that can go into a lot of other realms.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But just be mindful. What are you going to do after you sell? Have you got your accountant on board? And that's where I was coming across there. That if your accountant's on board, he usually understands why you're selling. He needs to be on board as well, because the preparation of your bookwork is paramount in any sale. If you can't prove your income, if you can't prove the viability of that business, then nobody really wants to buy something that they could go down the road and start themselves for no cost.
That's right.
Do you have to consider the family if you're selling?
That's such a tricky one, isn't it? That can become quite an emotional battlefield, really, because so much emotion, and especially if it's a historical generational business, I think it must be quite a lot of pressure to be the one that actually walks away and cuts that.
And that sort of comes back to that farming industry, and a lot of that is in the North Burnett, South Burnett, and a lot of regions, the succession planning of family really needs to be considered, and is there anybody willing to take over the farm before you actually sell, or do you need to have a price that somebody buys? Even family members need to buy and pay for taking over that farm or business of whatever it is. To enable you to move on with your life, because you don't want to have done 20 years in a business to end up with nothing and walk away and give your business to somebody just because it's a family member. Whatever works for you. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying that is something to consider.
A lot of thought to go into that, definitely.
So just do consider, but the main one is yet to come. So let's have a look at what that means. Make sure that selling is the right decision. Consider the real reasons behind your decision to sell your business and make sure it's the right one for you. This is a common question that potential buyers will ask you. Also one that's the most important. Why are you selling? I've personally had about 7 years as a business broker on the Sunshine Coast, so I have seen this enormous amounts of times, every single buyer wants to know if your business is so successful, why do you want to sell?
It's almost, to me, I see that, and it's almost like the job interview of what makes you the best person for this job. It's like, well, what makes this business the best one for me to buy? So it's a really interesting point.
It is, and everybody, there's a lot of reasons. A lot of the reasons that most people sell can be health. It can be divorce. It can be just a family split, and so therefore they need to relocate or move on. But there's multiple reasons. It can be that you've just had enough.
Yeah.
In a lot of my sales, I used to actually reach a point where I got the business to where it needed to be, and I felt that it was time to let my baby go on to the next generation of business owner. Sure. And so that, to me, all my businesses were like my babies, and for me, selling just became that reason that it needed to go to that next generation to see what they could do, because in a lot of cases too, you can get stale in your business.
For sure.
You are just doing what you've always done.
Yes.
And as we know, life, technology, all of those things are moving at such a radical pace.
Yeah.
Are we keeping abreast of what is needed to keep that business fresh?
Oh, absolutely.
So just have a good hard think about that, because it is one of the most important questions that a buyer will ask. Why are you selling?
Yeah.
Have that reason. And if it is, and it has to be genuine.
Yes.
Don't just say, because I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
Because that means that there's something wrong with the business, with the internal, to make me sick of it.
And I think that's an important piece in itself, is that I guess most people would think, if they're selling it, must be something wrong with it.
It is.
So having that, I guess, almost like a key message about, I'm selling it because...
Exactly. And it's a valid reason, whatever that valid reason will be. And a buyer will always look for reasons to find your business not the one for them, even though it was what made them make the call in the first place. But they really have to know that they are making the right decision. So if you can put any ounce of problems or issues or question marks in front of them, they will pounce on that.
Red flag.
It is like a red flag.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're thinking of selling because of financial problems, consider about getting professional advice from a business advisor to make sure selling is the right decision. Because there's a lot of things in the background that if you're having financial issues, that could be detrimental at the end of that sale. So you really need to seek professional advice on whatever that reason or what the problems might be. Selling a business may result in additional obligations to pay as well. You've got employee entitlements, you've got tax amount for asset sales, capital gains tax, employees who've had long service leave owing. These are just a few of those items. So that's why it's very important to seek that professional advice.
It almost goes back to the earlier session that we spoke about with your fixed costs and things like that. It's like you need to know what that's going to look like, because even if you've got a figure in your head of what you think your business is going to sell for, if you've got all of those to think about, that number could really dwindle quite quickly. So
that comes back to why you're selling. Do you need the financial benefits of selling a business at X amount of dollars that you have a high inflated price source in your head? But what is the reality down here of what your business might be worth?
I like too the point that, if you're selling because of the financial problems, I mean, of course, we can't assume that everyone's in the same financial situation, but I would imagine in some cases, if it is viable for that business owner to reinvent a bit of, like groundwork to improve the business, be it systems, processes or costs, just that little bit of time and not just quickly putting the for sale sign out will actually do a lot to
benefit.
Yeah.
And that's again where it comes back to, having those professionals on board to give you that advice and helpful information, because it's not just a matter of hanging a for sale sign out the front door.
Hope is not a strategy.
No.
So
So what to do? Decide whether to use professionals. Look at using a reputable business broker, accountants, solicitors to help you sell your business. So there's lots of people out there who can actually assist you. And a lot of people say business brokers, they cost so much money. They're professional. They help you buy or sell a business, and they can help you understand the government requirements, offer advice about the profitability of your business, and provide market trends on your industry. They can make the process of selling your business less stressful. So I'm not here advocating for business brokers. I'm here to give you the information that's out there.
So you can make an informed decision about what's best for your situation.
And make sure that whomever you use, you check the professional credentials to ensure that they are reputable. Most business brokers are reputable, but a lot of them also earn commission from the sale of your business. So just make sure that you're dealing with somebody that you can talk to. Because at the end of the day, they're dealing with something that's very, very personal to you. And they do charge quite a lot of, can be quite considerable. And don't forget that is negotiable. But they do take that stress and the help of negotiation phase out of that. Don't forget when you're selling a business, I used to say when I was a business broker that we're not only dealing with you as the seller, we're dealing with the buyer. We're dealing with buyers' solicitors, we're dealing with sellers' solicitors, we're dealing with accountants on both sides, so that's again 2 lots of accountants. We're then dealing with mum and dad, grandma, auntie, uncle, Fred, whomever of the buyer who can interject at any given time, so that can be 20 people who can interject at any given time to say that, why would you do that? That's a stupid idea. Why is that? Why would you want to tie yourself down to that business? So it's the business broker or that professional person you've got on board who can actually guide and advise along the way to keep everything on track. So don't be afraid to, I know it's a big cost, but please, they do their job well. And it is not a simple process in selling a business.
It's almost to me a little bit like that whole outsourcing piece, like if you're not great at marketing, you're not great at graphic design in your business, there are people, I could sit here and, clunk around for hours, or I could outsource it and focus on what I'm good at.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit to me like that. Yes, you do have to invest some money, but it might just be the sanity saving piece that you need in this process. But again, you do the numbers, do the research, have a look and see what's right for you. But
and don't forget that the business brokers are there to find the seller. They don't get paid until you sold your business. You only pay them on the successful sale. So therefore, you need a buyer. Where's that buyer going to come from? If over all the years of me buying my businesses, I have never ever not used a business broker to buy a business, and I've had 20 plus businesses. So at the end of the day, they know where the buyers are. But anyway, let's move on from that because it sounds like I'm advocating for just business brokers. I am not. I'm just giving you the pros and cons of what that involves.
Because it is. It's a big deal. So
it is. Decide what's for sale. It's not just a matter of saying my business is for sale. Make sure you agree on exactly what to include in the sale of your business, establishing what exactly is for sale will help you value your business. Ask yourself, do you want to sell this business outright, including all assets? Which assets don't you want to sell if indeed you don't want to sell all of them? Do you want to sell your registered business name? Are you looking to sell the business intellectual property? Do you want to include any property the business might own? It might be that you are in your own building or a building that belongs to your superannuation. And you are currently renting that building from your own superannuation. That building, does it go with the sale or do they have to sign a new lease on the new people taking over the business? There's multiple considerations within that itself. Also, just note that when selling a business, I'll go into this a little bit more later on, but it's pertinent now because when you're selling a business, GST is not payable if you're selling it as a going concern. A going concern means that everything has to go with the business on that sale. Meaning that you have to keep the doors open, all the assets, the stock, that the actual business door remains open to enable that business to continue and not close the door for even one day. So just be aware of that.
So when you are looking at going back to that whole severing ties to a business, I've seen it happen before. Like, you've seen businesses, especially in our little towns, have been there forever, and then a new business owner comes in, changes the name, changes the product, changes all of that. Like, is there anything business owners can do to kind of, I guess, prepare themselves? Because that must be a real shock. Yeah.
Look, it does happen. I'll give you an example of exactly that. I sold a business that was worth $500,000 on the Sunshine Coast. These people spent 3 weeks doing a due diligence, which is what I'll go into a little bit later on of what that means. So that means that they really crunched all the numbers with their accountant to make sure that this business was a great business. This
the right one for them to buy.
The business had been operational in that location for 8 years. The owners had started it from scratch, and they were selling on because their life had changed and they were moving on, and it was absolutely amazing business. They did all of their checks and balances to make sure it was great. They took over within a week. They had actually changed the name. They changed who they were actually buying on. And within a matter of weeks, the business just went boom, like that.
Whoa.
Because when you buy a business, you buy such a thing as what's called goodwill.
Yes.
And that's built up over time. It's the owners, it's that reputable reputation, it's that name that's on the front of that building.
It's
and so, look, nobody can stop that.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not something that I would ever advise for, because to me, they had paid something like $5,000 or $6,000 to do their due diligence on that particular business. They may as well have gone down the road and bought into and opened their own business.
Right.
They had completely annihilated any goodwill. Again, it does happen.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can drive to make not happen.
Yeah.
If an incoming buyer decides to do that, that's within their rights to do so. And you, as the business owner moving on, if you're that tied to something that desperately and you really find that hard to cope with, then maybe you might need to question, is it time to sell or not?
Again, going back to that first piece of really doing that navel gazing and that investigation as, do I really want to sell, and is this the best time and the best situation? Because to me, the whole reason that they bought that business was because of all of that work. It doesn't seem sensible to then totally just change it. Yeah. Anyway, interesting. All right. So valuing your business.
Yeah, valuing the business, and this is how we've come up with a sale price of your business. There's multiple ways of doing that. Your accountant will have his own idea of what your business is worth. Not always reliable, I must say. So the 3 most common valuation methods are analysing your market. So compare your business, similar business on the market that have recently sold. While this is not a formal valuation, it does provide a guide to your possible market. In some cases, that is not always possible because, as for instance, in our little towns, in our regions, there's not a lot of multiple businesses that sell over and over again. It's much easier on places like the Sunny Coast or metropolitan areas. Calculating a business net worth. So what is that net worth of that business? A net worth is what it's actually netting to owners at that bottom line. And it has to be looked at, and it's usually always looked at on a 3-year basis.
Okay.
Compare the differences between what your business owns, assets, and what your business owes, liabilities. You need to consider both tangible assets, such as machinery, building, land, and intangible, such as goodwill and brands and recognition.
All
such
that
as
stuff we just talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using return on investment, so ROI, your accountant in most cases will look at this and look at the net profit and work out the value of your business. Look, it does work for really big businesses, you know. If you've got a big company that has a return on investment, yes, you know, you can do that, but you certainly wouldn't use that method for a little cafe.
Right. Okay.
Because in most cases, is the owner even getting paid? So return on investment, and it can mean multiple things. So if I'm investing $50,000 into buying this business and it's only showing a profit of 10, my return on investment doesn't look that good. But if it's showing a $60,000 return to the owners and you're paying 50, then you know that's a pretty good return on investment. So it's really having a look at that and what does that actually mean for you. Now, as a seller, it's a hard one because accountants will look at numbers because that's just what they do. They don't know what the market's doing. They don't actually know. Well, they do know your circumstances, but they don't know how quickly you want to sell. It might be that they look at the numbers and think, yes, and your plant and equipment on the depreciation value might be worth $100,000, but in actual fact, second-hand equipment is worth 20 cents in the dollar. So what an accountant thinks is seeing in books is totally different to what a buyer will value your property at. So just be mindful, there's a bit of a discrepancy between what accountants think and what actually happens when selling a business. So finding buyers for your business. You can't sell a secret. Oh my gosh. One of the things I used to get told all the time is, oh my goodness, I'm not paying for advertising. I'm not going to be, putting my name out there because I don't want everybody to know that I'm selling. I don't want the employees to know I'm selling.
That's true.
Well, I can't sell a secret.
No.
You know, that was one of my catchphrases. And the same goes for anybody selling a business. You know, you can't find a buyer without telling the buyer it's for sale. So whatever that means to you, you've really got to get over that angst of what that means.
Can I just jump in really quickly about that whole staff and vocalising that, because look, we know being in regions, it's quite difficult to, we don't have the job opportunities as the metro centres. People get really anxious about job security. How do you suggest businesses navigate that with their staff? If this is like, you don't want to hear, or you don't want to open up the newspaper, for example, or see on Facebook or whatever that your business where you work is for sale. So how do you work, or how do you suggest businesses navigate that?
In most cases, the incoming owner can't do without staff either. You know, you already know that the business has to be kept running. It has to continue. So the best, I've always suggested to people that they had a bit of a staff meeting. Once the business has gone to market, not in those beginning phases, because some things can change. You can change your mind about selling. You know, it's really understanding, is it going to actually go to market? And then it's having that conversation around, look, I am putting the business on the market, but it doesn't mean your business, your jobs are in jeopardy because the new owners will need staff.
Absolutely.
So it's really keeping them abreast of what's happening. We all know that if we're sitting in a situation where we don't know, we invent things in our head of what the possibilities are. So, eliminate
communication. Keep the channels of communication open, and like you say, your people resources are your biggest asset. So
and your staff can sometimes be your buyer. or family members be a buyer.
Oh.
So it's not always bad.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So, you know, it might be that you've I had a lady in just the other day. She's been working for this particular business for some years on a casual basis. She's now interested, well, they're going to be selling. Oh, geez, I might like to buy this.
Wow.
So I was going through that with her. So don't ever discount that either.
That's a really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
So you can advertise the sale of your business, potential buyers through different methods, which include business brokers, again, real estate agents. Now, just bear in mind that it's completely different selling a business as opposed to selling a house.
Right.
If I'm buying a house, I love the bathroom, I love the kitchen, I'm pretty much sold.
Yes.
Whereas buying a business, there's all those mechanisms that I said before, you know, of accountants and solicitors and all those different types of things. So for me, I don't advocate for real estate agents selling businesses unless they have had experience in selling businesses in the past. But again, that's a decision you have to make.
And that might be a bit different too in our regional context, because the real estate agents do tend to be those ones that do broker those business.
And in that case, it's a little bit different too, because they've been in the region, they know the people, they know the shops. It's a little bit of a different thing. You know, if I've got, you know, agent who's been selling 100 houses and I ask them to sell a business in the metropolitan area, he knows nothing about who I am, what I am, or what the heck. You know, he's got the same license, but he doesn't have the same skills.
So it's really finding that agent who has that experience, has the regional knowledge, and going from there. Okay.
Digital and traditional market, digital and traditional media. These days it's nearly all done digitally. We don't have that traditional method of advertising your businesses. It's the, you know, online presence. It's actually those business brokers who have those portals like they do on realestate.com. They have business broker portals that just sell businesses. And they will charge a fee to get you up on that and keep your business high on that digital marketing platform. Your existing networks, again, like I was saying before, family, friends or employees, they can be a great source of catching that buyer. Word of mouth. We hear that, oh, Uncle Fred down the road is actually selling his farm. You know, well, hell's bells, I'm actually looking to expand my farm. Maybe I could talk to Uncle Fred because I want to actually take over another patch of ground. So it's really talking about that.
And I imagine that, again, coming back to that, the people looking to buy into the region would be going online, because they might not necessarily live in, might not live in the region, but they do want to be able to see what's out there, and would need those online platforms to find that out. So.
When I was a business broker, I used to have quite a number of people who actually came in from overseas. And they were, at that time, it's a different visa now, but at that time it was called a 457 visa. So they actually had to buy a business, run that business successfully for a minimum of 2 years, prove to the government that they'd actually managed to do so, by their numbers at the end of that to be granted permanent residency.
Wow.
So there are some of those buyers out there still who have to prove that they are successful and can earn their own way in the Australian area.
Okay.
Current or former customers of your business. So again, it's coming back to just...
And, you know, like if you love a business and if you love what that business does and it's a great fit and you share their values, then why not?
Absolutely.
As long as the numbers are right and all that sort of stuff. You do due diligence.
So the way you advertise will depend on your business type, industry and contacts as well, you know. So, you know, let's just say it's a big mining business. Well, you wouldn't put that in the local paper. it would actually go out to the world news.
Yeah.
It would go out to those other mining companies who have a vested interest in what they might be selling. But if I'm selling a cafe, it's a totally different area, type of industry, and where you would market to.
Definitely. Yeah.
Check whether there are any requirements in your state or territory about what information you need to give potential buyers and what protection you get from the potential buyer. Example, confidentiality agreements. I'll go into this a little bit further on once we get to contractual information.
Yeah.
So in the next section, we're actually preparing a contract. And what does that look like? What does that mean? What do you need to consider? Often an intermediary will draw up the sale of contract. Yeah. So business broker, your seller's solicitor. I've had a lot of people in the past ask me, they've been looking to buy a business and they actually have gone directly to the seller because they don't have a broker involved. Again, they've heard word of mouth that the business might be for sale.
Right.
And they've come and they've said, oh, I'm going to draw up the contract. Well, it really is the seller's responsibility. You can draw it up, but it's going to cost you, up to $2,000 to draw that contract up. It is a seller's responsibility, or again, a business broker. That's part of what they cover as well. So again, it's saving you solicitors' fees in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
You should also have a solicitor check the contract for you. If you're going to contract, make sure that the solicitor can confirm that the contract doesn't include any false statements and covers all aspects of the sale.
Yeah.
And underneath here, we've got all the relevant assets that are being transferred, including property, equipment, fixtures, fittings, stock, and any rights to use any name. And that can vary. It might be that you've got Joe Blogg's Cafe, but Joe Blogg's Cafe may also have Joe's catering service.
Mm-hmm.
And is Joe's catering service part of Joe Blogg's Cafe?
Right.
Because that's formed part of the financial income.
Yeah.
And is it being transferred or is it being left off the side and you didn't know that?
You definitely want to know that, because what if that part of the business was the big money earner and you're thinking, I'm going to absorb that as well.
Yes.
No. Okay.
So being mindful that you've got all of the aspects of the business coming across to you that you've agreed to or understood to be coming across. All relevant liabilities, including creditors, people or businesses that your business owes money to, and the lease of the business premise. Be mindful that in some cases people don't have leases. So you're going into a business that doesn't already have a lease, and so therefore landlord's circumstances change, and he says to you next week, well, I'm sorry, but I'm moving on now. I need you to move out. So you really need to know that you've got a safe and secure leasing arrangement.
So what would they have in lieu of not having a lease? What do they just have, like a gentleman's agreement,
And sometimes it can be just a month-to-month agreement. It can be a handshake. It can be that they've been there for 20 years, and it's just a legal thing that the lease is lapsed and nobody's ever looked at getting it renewed.
Check your leases, people. Check your leases.
So it's just being mindful that that actually is in place. Now, there is another aspect to this as well, that you can have a lease, and I can have a lease with you as an agreement, and that's binding. But if that lease is not registered with the Australian government, and it's a legal process where I have always registered my leases. So that lease then goes off to stamp duties, it gets stamped, and the lease becomes a legally binding agreement for the term of that agreement, no matter who buys the business. So if I've only got a lease agreement that is not registered, and I take over this business from Mary over here, and her agreement is between you and her, it does not always mean that that lease can be continued in the same way that Mary has agreed with you as the landlord. So it's and if you need more information on that, please seek legal advice.
I was going to say, who would people go to for
A solicitor.
Okay.
And a solicitor will actually put the paperwork in for you to register that lease.
So that's good.
It's a really great thing for the landlord too, because he knows he's got that lease tied up. And there are a few other legal items behind here that you will need to discuss with your solicitor, so just be mindful. Responsibility for employees and employee entitlements, including whether employers are to be transferred with the sale. You can't sell people. No, you can't.
Like people open to you.
No, you can't. It's just a terminology. So if an employee has time served by the employee, as this can have ramifications to an incoming owner, meaning that, sorry, that was a bit of a jumbled way of saying that, but what it means is that I may have worked for that business owner for 11 years. So I'm actually entitled to long service leave. That outgoing owner still has the responsibility of that. But if that is not sorted out on that sale and on that contractual agreement, the new owner inherits that responsibility when that person decides to go on. If you've got a good solicitor, they will also investigate that for you. And just be mindful as an outgoing or a seller that you really have to make account for that. That if you owe somebody that's been working here for you for 11 years, there's a lump sum payable that must transfer to the new owner once their solicitor says, looks and investigates.
Quite a chunk of money.
It can be. Statement about what will happen if any issues arise. For example, the buyer decides not to proceed. Mistakes are discovered in the contract, etc. So what does that mean? Again, it's really good to have that legal person in the background, or your business broker or whomever, who can actually guide you through that process. In a contractual situation, I think it's always best to have your solicitor on board and to be able to discuss that because they know the legal problems and the legal issues and the legal ways to get around those things.
And would you need to re-engage your business broker at that point, or are they still, if I don't know if it's one size fits all, but would that broker still be with you in the buying journey? So that's part of the service?
It should be. I can't say it is, but when I was a business broker, I would see it from start right through to end, because I don't get paid unless that conclusion has happened, in a positive way. And so any good broker will always see that through. And they should also be talking to the solicitors to make sure that everything's on track.
Right. So again, if you're exploring the business broker route, make sure that you do know, and that both parties are aware and aware that that's what your agreement is. That you're in there for the long haul until it's the same.
And again, we go through. There's clauses, same as buying a house. You might have it subject to finance, subject to a due diligence, and there's time frames behind those clauses. And also, the next point is an extremely important one. There's a clause in there which will normally add a trade restriction on you as the seller. Now, what this does is, after the sale, it restricts you from operating a similar business within a certain radius and for a time frame.
Right.
And so, therefore, you cannot. I'm selling a cafe here next door, and you can't go and open the same cafe next door just because you sold that. Right. So it's protection to the buyer to know that if you're buying from a great operator, that they're not going to hinder you by opening it in a close proximity to where you are. So it's really understanding you should always have a trade restriction. I will tell you a story which is personal to me. I was buying a clothing business from a lady who had lost her son through leukemia. I was dealing between, the broker wasn't involved in this, and I don't actually remember why he had departed. I think it was because they had actually told him they didn't want anything to do with him.
Right.
And they were out of their agency agreement. So I was dealing with her husband. I came time for signing the contract and I said to him, I need a trade restriction on this person. He said, oh, she will never, ever open a business ever again. She's too devastated. I, at the time, was a widow with 2 small children myself.
Yes.
Should have known better. Yeah. I let it go because I didn't want to push the point because I knew she was in a really bad mental state.
Yeah.
I was only in the business 3 to 4 months and she opened down the road and I nearly went broke. It was the only business in my entire life. I didn't go broke, but it was the only business where I was to that point
Possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you know, I have a real passion for trade restrictions and will always protect any buyer in that contract with that particular clause.
And speaks to the point of emotional.
Yes.
Don't get too emotional in the process because
I let my heart rule my head.
And you know, okay, get loud. But
I'm do it again.
That's right. There you go.
Look, and this one comes back to where you were talking before as well. Take care of your employees. It's important to communicate with your employees. I think we've sort of covered off on this.
So what about the notice factor? Like, how much notice do you need to give employees? Or is it?
Yeah, and that does come into play. You know, you have to terminate.
Yeah.
So you give them the legal required whatever term that person. They might be called casual.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's today I'm changing, tomorrow it's Prue that owns the business, and she'll be picking up on your employee entitlements, payments.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody you've had long term, then there has to be a time served, or you have to pay them out. So that if you don't give them enough notice, you have to give them that notice pay in lieu.
Yeah.
So just be mindful that you are aware of what obligations you have towards your employees, and again, speaking with your solicitor as to what you have to offer or do to ensure a smooth transition for both employees, yourself and the buyer.
Yeah. People are important.
They are very important, yeah. Finalise your tax and legal issues.
This sounds a bit boring.
It does, I know. But, you know, there's things called capital gains tax, goods and services tax, individual business assets, GST credits. All of these things are very much what you've got to talk to your accountant about. I am not an accountant. I don't offer advice on any of this. I just say, please seek advice from your accountant about your individual needs.
Yeah. Let them deal with it.
Exactly. They're the ones that are dealing with the
They get excited by this stuff.
Yeah.
I do know that. It is important.
It is. But just note there that GST is not payable on a business sale if the business is a going concern. We went through that before. The definition of this is that if equipment and stock in trade transfers with the sale and the doors remain open. Some people, I see businesses advertise plus GST. Well, the only reason that there'd be plus GST is if it was actually not operating. So just be mindful of that. I'll tell you another story about that. I had a lady who was buying, she wanted to buy the freehold of this particular business, which wasn't a going concern. She was dealing with owners. The owners decided to say to her, it's plus GST. In her mind, it was $3,500. When I had a good look and I said to her, hang on a minute, I said, you do realise that the GST on this is $38,000.
Right.
And she went, oh my God, no.
Right.
And yes, okay, GST is in and out.
Yes.
But if you're operating a little cafe, $38,000 worth of paid GST will take a long time to get back.
For sure.
And it's an upfront charge or money you have to find. So just be mindful that you do seek that advice.
And random question, you know, sometimes you see, like, I'm thinking probably more like your fashion retail stores.
Yep.
New owner comes in, they put the paper in the windows and reopening and whatever.
Yeah.
Is that something that they can do if it's meant to be a you don't close your doors going concern, as you say, or is that something that they need to factor into the contract, or what?
Again, I'd be asking accountants how long is that going to happen for?
Yeah.
If it's longer than a day or two, then I would definitely seek legal advice as to what those ramifications may be.
Okay.
You know, and there's extenuating circumstances. ATO aren't really bad people. I know they take our money and we don't like paying it, but at the end of the day, it's an evil necessity.
Yeah.
So, you know, it really, again, it comes back to getting that proper legal advice.
I'd imagine you might go into a business, and you need to do repairs, or you want to give it a fresh coat of paint or something.
Absolutely.
You freshen it up. You should be entitled to do that.
Yeah. So it's just having that awareness and what's the communication.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Fantastic.
So I suppose I've gone through a little bit of that today. I don't know whether we've got any questions here. And again, please, we are in real time. We are here with you. And if you'd like some of those questions that burning in your head answered, just give us a shout out.
Yeah. Tap away, and we can put those questions to Vicki. I have had one, Vicki, about deposits. Like when you're buying a business, is there a standard rule of thumb of how much deposit you need?
Yeah, look, you know, in most cases, if you're borrowing borrowing finance to actually purchase the business, rule of thumb is that you should have 30% of your own money or assets back that purchase of whatever you're purchasing. Deposit-wise on a contract, it can be any nominal amount. And, you know, I've seen where $500 secures it until terms and conditions are met. And then what usually will happen is, as if you've got a broker involved, they will ask for their commission, the full amount of their commission, to be paid into the trust account on satisfactory completion of the terms and conditions. So that might be 10,000, it might be 15,000, it might be 80,000, depending on what that number is that goes into their trust account to come off the purchase price that you have to pay in the end. So it's a bit like having a house deposit. There isn't, look, it's a rule of thumb. But just be aware that any nominal amount of deposit can hold that business for you to make those assessments. But most of them will try and push you for that entire commission that's payable or a substantial sum. I don't say that's not right. I say that it also shows your commitment to the buyer. So if that buyer needs to see that contract and you've given them $100 as a deposit, their immediate thought is, well, hang on, have these people actually got enough money to complete this? It's a really poor show of good faith.
Yeah, showing your bona fides right from the get-go.
Absolutely.
And then just an interesting point, you mentioned like the trust funds and things like that. At what point when you sort of, I guess either thinking of buying a business, at what point do you have to, do you set up do you go to your banking institution and say that you want to set up a business account or?
Yes, of course you do. I thought you were going to say set up a trust account, but no, that's done by, that's all done by them. But setting up a business account, I mean, once you know that your terms and conditions are met and the business is unconditional sale, that's the time then you really need to get your bum into gear and get a proper banking business account, because don't forget you're going to have things like FPOS machine, FPOS changeovers, that sort of thing. So keeping that continuity of operation and income coming in is paramount.
Right, okay, all right. So say you've found an agent or, to buy a business or sell a business. All looks good, and then it sort of goes pear-shaped. How do you navigate? If you still want that business, can you go direct to the seller? What's your sort of take on that?
Yeah.
What's your advice or your experience, I guess, in that context?
Yes. Look, it has to be a really bad reason for you to go behind the back of the broker or whomever's selling the business. Look, I have seen it done, but in most cases, every agent, especially if we're talking about business brokers or real estate agents, they will get what's called a confidentiality agreement signed.
Okay.
That confidentiality agreement gives your particulars to them for them to give you personal information pertaining to that business. It means that you cannot share that information with other than your professional accountants and solicitors, banking or financial people, so that it doesn't put all of that out as common knowledge to the general public. So it's protecting the business owner to know that their personal information is protected and managed in a way. And so therefore, if I'm going to buy a business and I don't like the broker and I decide, well, I'm going to go straight to Prue because Prue's selling the business. She seems nice. I'm going to try and save her money by not letting her pay the broker. Yeah. Well, that's usually a no-no. And in 99% of the cases, the broker will need to be paid anyway because they've introduced that person to the business.
Right.
And so, you have things like exclusive sales agreements. And no matter what happens, if that person that's been introduced to that business, then it doesn't matter if the broker takes it through to conclusion, that business seller will still have to pay that agent the exclusive commission.
Okay, right. It's quite a complex little landscape there. Are you obliged to sign a confidentiality agreement?
If you want the information of the business, yes, you are.
Right.
And again, you put yourself in the seller's shoes.
Yeah.
If I'm giving you 3 years worth of my financial statements, and showing, basically opening my soul about what my business is doing and how it's operating, then the least you can do is sign a confidentiality agreement to say that you will not.
Go and tell the whole town.
Exactly.
And so if you don't do that confidentiality agreement, what basic information can you get about the business? Like, it wouldn't really be enough to make a good
analysis of the business.
Correct.
No, because usually all you'll see is what's on the advertisement. It's usually, cafe for sale, purchase price of $50,000, in a great location. Please call for more information. And once you call for more information, to get anything further from that, you must sign a confidentiality agreement.
I can imagine it's like seeing the beautiful photoshopped photos on realestate.com or even some of the social media platforms that you go and see in real life. It's like, it's got a whopping big dirty warehouse or something next to it and the tower of power and whatever. So okay.
So advertising is really what they want you to see. The true in-depth digging that you need to do to satisfy yourself and ensure that you're protecting yourself. It's really that in-depth. How have those figures been derived? How has the business owners been able to take 50 grand a year, if indeed they are? Where is all their income coming from? Again, a bit back to where I was before. Is there two sections to a business? Is there a manufacturing side and a retail side?
So how reliant are they on each other? So what happens if all of a sudden I find myself either, I don't know, I've just had enough with my job, I've been made redundant, I see a business opportunity, it was not really on my radar. Can I borrow that full amount to buy that business? Is that common practice or is that not looked upon favourably? How does that?
It will depend on your assets. If you own a home and you've got a $200,000 or $300,000 equity in your home, finance companies will let you borrow against your home, but they will not lend you an umbrella if they know it's not going to rain. Unless they know it's not going to rain.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, if they can't see that the figures are viable, it doesn't matter if you've got $200,000 worth of equity and you only want to borrow 50. How are you going to pay this back? Where's your business plan? Where's your cash flow forecast? Where are your break-even points, and at what point are we going to get our money back?
So that's interesting. So even though you might have a mansion somewhere, you know, they're really only worried about how you're going to refinance that amount that you're borrowing from them to buy that
That's
business.
right. And at the end of the day, they don't want to be seen as the bad guys having to sell your house
for a $50,000
investment. So it's dependent on exactly what the circumstances are.
Yeah.
What are the repayment options, and how is that going to happen? And are we investing in a secure investment?
Yeah, okay. So if you've got any more questions about what we've talked about, there's quite a minefield of different topics when it comes to preparing your business for sale. Drop them into the comments. Vicki and I are both here now, so we can answer as best we can in the comment section. So often businesses will have their own systems and processes and preferred suppliers and all of that sort of background stuff that's happening.
Yes.
Presumably you, as a buyer, you absorb that, but does the business seller, do they have any obligation to almost do like a handover to you? You know, like, we use this accounting software, or we use this. Like, how does that work?
It doesn't have to be in that in depth, but in most cases, all contracts will have like a training period, where there's a handover time. In most of my businesses, it's been 7 to 14 days, where I have the outgoing owner guide me through those types of things. Who's the suppliers? What is, if you've got a great customer who really likes a certain product, where do I get that product from?
Absolutely.
So there is a time frame, and that's again agreeable between buyer and seller. In some cases, it's negated. Because the buyer doesn't need that. But I would recommend a handover to some degree.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. Anything else that you
look? I think it's up to you guys now. It's, you know, we may have sparked some sort of a question in your head. By all means, be in touch. The number below will give you contact with us. Call BIEDO if you need to, and they can put us in touch or give you some assistance in how to get in touch. Just be mindful too that we will have, if you go to our Business Leap website, you'll also see the upcoming events we've got for those educations that will help you in business. Yeah,
there's so many coming up. So watch this space. You can jump onto the BIEDO website as well. They'll all be listed there. Really, really interesting subject. Really interesting subject. And one, I think, especially a lot of, like we talked about, businesses who have been long established in our region. You know, it's such a big deal. And I think just being able to pick up the phone to someone like yourself that can be that impartial sounding board. And when they do find themselves getting a little bit emotional, a little bit, I guess, you know, tied up in the history and the legacy of the business, can just come back and talk practicality with you in a really comfortable and safe environment. You come to them. Vicki's a free service through Business Leap, so completely funded by the government, as we've mentioned. So you can access her one-on-one in your own place of business, talk about all of those different aspects of your specific business and your family situation, whatever you're willing and happy to share, obviously. But you can then get a really good take on where you stand as you prepare your business for sale. And as we said, you know, we want to see businesses continue and remain in our regions. But if it's time to hang up the reins, then Vicki's here to help. And so thank you very much for coming along, and I hope it's been informative. And by all means, touch base if you need to. We're here. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching. See you.